why did you step out of US and expand globally?
You look at the percentage of revenue from our international operations, and it's gone from, obviously 0% 7 years ago to, 17, 18% of revenue this year.
The Indian market has evolved from, hey, I just need somebody to do data entry, to the mentality of staff or IT augmentation.
Where do you feel is going to be the highest growth market?
You look at the Middle East right now, UAE and Saudi Arabia. If you can really adopt AI and take advantage of it, you're going to be in good shape. But if you don't, you're going to fall behind really fast. The best result and the best ROI comes from when you have people plus technology.
Welcome to another episode of Humans of Staffing. We've got here Jeremy Langevin, who is the CEO of Horizontal Talent based out of Minneapolis. And welcome, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining me and TJ.
Thank you, Sammy. TJ, it's wonderful to be here.
Great. I know we've had a brief chat right before this, and let's just dive right into this because staffing is going through a big headwind right now. Many challenges, and you, of course, are in the global, which I did not realize that you were global. So let's just talk about that, your journey in staffing up to now. Why did you step out of, US and expand globally? What were the reasoning behind it? Just kind of give us a little bit of your history, and then what made you step outside the shores?
Yeah, good question. So obviously the US is the largest staffing market, especially in IT, which we really is our primary. And so, there's still plenty of market share for us to go after here and continue to go after. We got our hands into international when we started with hiring some team members in India to support our U.S. business. So similar to other countries that are looking for more capacity, we expanded into India really to support U.S. operations about 10 years ago. And as we were doing that, we started out with having sourcers in India that were supporting the recruiters in the U.S., then went to having, full desk recruiters there. And we started seeing that there was an opportunity in India itself to staff companies there. And so, we made a decision probably about 7 years ago to open up our staffing services to companies in India. And it started with our clients that we have in the U.S. that have India operations. So if we're staffing them here, they've got a center in India. They come to us. We can staff them in multiple countries. That helps us move up the value chain, and we're providing them services in multiple locations. And subsequently, that's really taken off in India. Then we opened up an office in Malaysia. Little bit of an opportunity and a way to kind of get into that region, still part of APAC, but as a potential launching point into Singapore and the Philippines, and also Australia, which we just opened a year ago, about a year and a half ago. And so, you look at the kind of the pros and cons. The pros are really it opens up more markets and more opportunities. It allows you to serve your customers in more locations. The potential challenges you would say is, okay, well, are you taking your ball off of what you're trying to accomplish in the U.S. and are you spreading yourselves too thin? And I think that could certainly be the case if you're not ready for that type of expansion. But, what's interesting is you look at the percentage of revenue from our international operations, and it's gone from, obviously 0% 7 years ago to it'll be, 17, 18% of revenue this year, and putting up really good growth years over the last 2 years, where in the U.S. we've had some decline. So it really helps you, diversify, take advantage of maybe markets that are growing in a downturn somewhere else. But ultimately, it really is providing a lot of value to our customers.
And in terms of the services, for example, in India, Jeremy, is it mainly direct sourcing, or is it hourly type of work, temp to hire, or is it mainly could be just as outsourcing of your payroll and you being the EOR for the where are you guys falling?
Yeah, it's primarily staff aug, staff aug, IT, kind of minimum 6-month contracts. We do have some customers that, will hire our people after a certain term, in the contract to hire realm. But there's, I think it's really an emerging market for that. It's probably more like the U.S. was 20 years ago when, our customers are trying to figure out how to use contract employees to a certain degree, and do they use them? And now every company, major company in the U.S. uses contingent labor, and I think that's becoming more the norm in India. But it's taking a while for labor laws and that type of thing to catch up. To be able to enable it. And if you think about, a lot of times you have the leave periods of up to 90 days, and, that stuff can be pretty hard to work with when you're talking contingent staffing or staff augmentation. But yeah, so we're doing primarily staff aug for our customers in India.
That's great. I mean, I've been personally involved in setting up software development centers in India the last 25, 26 years. Recruiting is a completely different ballgame in India, with, like you just mentioned, right? The notice periods, leave periods. But we actually feel that the last 30 years, the Indian market has evolved from hey, I just need somebody to do data entry, to the mentality of staff or IT augmentation. It's because you've got some unicorns that have come out of India over the last 5 to 8 years that have really changed the culture of the next generation that's coming in India. That's actually looking at those opportunities and saying, hey, you know what? It's okay to be a consultant. It's okay to augment even if it's temporary, because risk aversion is a big cultural no-no in India, right? So, like, what do you mean I'm only here for 3 months? I'm looking for a permanent full-time position with all these benefits. So I think with that change coming, and you guys position very well for the staff augmentation for the short-term contract period, I think that's where the growth is in India. We don't sell our platform to India or anything like that, but I've personally experienced that mindset change in India. I think you guys are very well positioned there.
Yeah, I mean, we find ourselves talking to the wives or the parents of the worker, yes, and trying to, yes, give them some comfort in what they're getting into. But so it's still less the norm, right? And a lot of people still want that full-time job. But if we have a relationship that can quickly get them into a great company, and they can get into an emerging technology team, and they could get in there on a 6-month contract, with a snap of the fingers, because of the relationships that we have, and then take care of them during that 6 months. A lot of times that'll go longer, or they'll go direct, or we'll place them somewhere else. Yep. And, it's a little bit like the benefit. I mean, you get a lot of job hopping in India. Yes. This is a way to do it, I think, without maybe some of that negative stigma of having to resign from a company to go to the next. You're there for a year, you resign from that one. You can do this in a contractual way where it's I think less of a negative, that because you went in there, you fulfilled the contract, you moved on, fulfilled the contract, and if at any point you want to stay, great. But there's you can put together a nice career by doing that as well.
Absolutely, and I believe what at least we're experiencing. If you're in the AI field, if you're an AI quote-unquote engineer, right? So whether, yep, behind the scenes you're a data engineer, whether behind the scenes you're a data scientist, this type of work is optimal for you, because even you as an employer, frankly, do not want to hire somebody full-time permanently on AI. If I need a specific skill set as an employer that is so dynamically changing and evolving, I want to bring in that person, that expert right away. I don't mind paying more. Help me out for the next 90 days, 180 days. Train my team. Let us incorporate that technology. Let us innovate. And now, let me move on to the next, so to speak. And if at least in my personal experience, I think that's the next wave that is there. That's going to even grow more and more, because I really don't want, as an employer, again, it gets into all these technical details, but if there's an emerging AI technology, I just want somebody to come in, show me the hoops, and just lead. And so I think that's one area that can grow tremendously for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, companies use contingent labor for many different reasons. Additional horsepower to get a project done, helping to implement new technology, bring in new skill sets, help them with the transformation, just as a strategy to have, 80% be full-time, 20% be contingent. So you've got flexibility. You're not having to lay off if you have to pivot your full-time employees. So, companies have for a long time had many reasons to use contingent labor, and I think that's spilling out much more internationally now. They're recognizing the benefits of it, and it takes a little while then to get the labor laws and everything around the cultural acceptance of it to with kind of the fear of a shorter term contract or the gig economy, but if it's definitely becoming more and more acceptable and popular. And in addition, I mean, we do staff aug, but we also bundle up projects into either teams or deliverable base as well, not only in India, but everywhere. And that's one of the evolutions that we've certainly had to make here.
Go ahead, Sam.
Which was out of all of these, so India, so a couple of things come to mind. One is you probably had to set up a corp yourself to do the work as a firm. Second would be, are you mainly targeting Indian firms, or is it US firms that are in India, so that then you can get better, maybe payment terms, collections a little bit easier, because that's always a big challenge in emerging markets?
Yeah, it's both. Whenever we expand, whether that's into a new state or city in the U.S. or new country internationally, you want to have some clients lined up in advance. Have those conversations. Hey, do you need help here, or what other locations do you need help? Okay, if we go there, could you get us onboarded? Could you bring us in? That's a lot easier when you have some customers right out of the gates. So certainly a lot of the Fortune 500s that we work with in the U.S. Were the first customers for us in India and elsewhere. But once you start establishing your operations, you're putting scale in place, then it doesn't matter where they're from or headquartered. If there's a Indian multinational, which we have many customers, we'll work with them as well. As long as it's the right type of partnership and it aligns with what we're looking for in customers, and we align with what they're looking for, you will certainly go there. But there's again, when you can help one client out in multiple locations, multiple countries, multiple time zones, they start looking at you a little bit differently than if you're just providing services in one location.
That is true. That is true. Now, out of all of those countries, which one was the biggest challenge to get into, where you're like, oh my God, I should have thought this one through twice?
What I've learned from, opening India, then Malaysia, then Australia, and with our digital side of the house, we've got operations in the Middle East, UAE and Saudi, and so what you start to understand is that you can't plan for everything. And, you think you're well positioned going in and you know everything you need to know. And then something throws you for a complete loop. You need a different type of license to operate. In Malaysia, you need a different license in order to do direct placement there. So you can go in and do staff aug, but you can't do direct placement. And so we didn't know that. We didn't know that going in. So, if you go in and say, hey, we do, staff aug, we do direct placement, we do services, you get a direct placement order and then you find out you can't fulfill it. So, we certainly try to, and we hire people in those markets, but maybe when you're hiring the people in those markets who've never worked outside of those markets, they don't know the differences of what you're used to, and then what would be different there for them to illustrate that. So it takes some time to figure that out. So I don't know that there's not one where I was like, I don't know if I would do it again or, anything like that. I certainly I'm happy with where we are. But I think there are some where we've said, hey, let's hold off. We're not ready yet. And UAE is one of those for us on the talent side, where we've got customers there where we're designing and building websites, enterprise applications, Salesforce, Sitecore, that are saying, hey, we would like to use you guys for staff aug. And, while you want to say yes to any customer request like that, staffing in UAE is just very different. And it's primarily multinationals that you're recruiting. You're recruiting from India, you're bringing them over, and things like that. And so, I've held us off there to say, we're not going to go in till we're ready to make the investment, till we're ready to hire the people, ready to hire a market director that, knows the space really well. And, you plan for about at least a 6-month implementation period where you're building your marketing materials, you're building out your website, you're understanding all the labor laws, you're getting all your contracts ready, you're understanding how you're going to run your payroll and the invoicing and what currency you're invoicing in. And so the more you do it, the better you get at rolling it out. But the more you do it, the more you realize that you can't just do it loosey-goosey and, on a whim or really quickly. You really have to think it through.
Got it. Where does, Jeremy, out of all the areas, where you feel the next 5 years? Is it UAE? Is it Southeast Asia? Is it US? Where do you feel is going to be the highest growth market? Where you feel this is you should be putting your resources?
I certainly will never bet against the US. And you have to be here, and that's still the core for us. But you look at some of the emerging markets. You look at the Middle East right now, with UAE and Saudi Arabia, and the money that is being spent there, and the investment into that region. It's pretty incredible, and it certainly seems. I've heard people compare to China 20 years ago. That there's just a big boom happening there right now, and the investment into technology and digital and experiences and all those things. So that's going to be where we enter next from a talent perspective. In 26. That's certainly a one to get excited about.
At least on my side. So, Jeremy, you feel Middle East is where right now
Middle
the
East
investments are going, right? That's where you feel the future is. And definitely getting talent there is a challenge, because you recruit from the several different countries that you bring in.
Right.
But is that mainly going to, because they've always been very heavy on infrastructure development, meaning construction, roads, right? That's where the focus is. Which side is this demand coming in at? Is it going to be at development of cloud infrastructure? Is it AI? Is it what type of talent you think they're trying to build in the next few years?
Yeah, I think it's definitely all the construction elements that you mentioned will continue on, but a big push towards, their desires to be considered a tech capital of the world, or very important tech. The UAE has been that financial, center for the Middle East. And I think now the desire is to, continue that on into the tech space. So you see like those, the big projects where they have building the largest communities in a linear fashion with digital walls and all digitally connected and experiences. And, so I definitely think that, tech is going to be a big play in the Middle East.
And how often are you on the road? Do you travel to all of your offices and locations? What's typically your travel schedule?
Yeah. Being in Minnesota, you like to be here in the summertime, because that's when the weather's really nice. It's like you can't beat it. But fall, winter, spring, it's winter climate. And so, that's when I do the bulk of my traveling, at least internationally.
Got it. So you're going there maybe once a year to each location, probably?
Yeah. Yep.
Gosh, that's a
yeah. They're big trips. They're big trips, and so it's hard to get there a lot. I mean, we've got some team members here that are more leading teams directly there that go there more frequently. But yeah, my cadence would be each market once a year.
And has it always been a challenge? So I would think on the accounting side, I mean, do you have pretty much of a strong team that has to handle? Look at all the different revenue streams, currencies, each client. I mean, how do you manage all of that? That just, to me, even having just US is big enough for us. A lot of times the States with 20, 30 states.
So if you look at our OpEx expenditure, it's certainly grown, a lot over the last 10 years. We have a VP of finance in the US that's ultimately responsible for everything. He's got a controller for the US. He's got a controller for international. And then we've got teams that cascade down into India and the US here that support it. But yeah, it can be challenging. When you've got a client in Malaysia that is headquartered out of Germany and trying to figure out what currency we're going to invoice, and then planning for fluctuations in those, and that can really impact your margins, depending on the currency and the timing and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely complicated, and you need a sophisticated organization to manage all that.
I usually like to ask this question about, we'll go back a couple of decades here. What was that transition? So I know I personally worked with somebody at Tech Systems back in the day.
Yeah.
What was that tipping point for you where you decided that, I'm going to start my own company? What was that journey for you? I'm just curious to see what was that.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, I had an amazing 10 years at Tech Systems, and I think that what ultimately why I left, it wasn't because I wasn't making enough money. It wasn't because I didn't enjoy the people I worked with. It was really the feeling that my next 10 years was going to look a lot like my first 10 years. And I didn't see that path to really challenge myself and develop myself and gain new skills. And, that's, in talking to my wife, back then, and when I was told her I was thinking about it, she was like, I know you're not you're not super jazzed up. You're not super excited to do your job anymore. And so if that's the case, that's a dangerous position to be in, if you're not feeling enthused about your opportunity. So I left. I actually joined one of my former consultants, a guy that I had recruited out of E&Y back in the day, placed him a few different times. He started winning some project-based work, and I was staffing him with people to do the projects. And after a couple of years of doing that, he was like, "You want to come over and help us kind of sell solutions?" And I thought I was moving out of staffing and into more of this solutions space and solution selling. So it felt like it was going to be a change for me. And it was him and one other partner, and I was the third guy in, and I, we joke about it a little bit today, but I certainly had no idea that if we would make it. I thought odds are that we probably wouldn't make it, but I would learn a lot, in those years of, being in a startup environment, being an entrepreneur, having to wear a lot of hats in a small organization than being, wearing one hat in a massive organization. And, so I did what many people were shocked that I did, leave kind of at the top of my tenure at Tech Systems and go to a little company of two and no website, no branding, just some guys with some ideas and some energy and some passion to build something. And almost 20 years later, here we are, and it's fun kind of looking back, at those different milestones along the way and making that decision and, knowing that it's been a great experience. That's really the story behind that. And it's been fun.
And Tech Systems was always at the top of their game. I mean, originally, that's where, remember, there was another, not Monster. Before that, there used to be that tool. I still remember everybody used to use it to source candidates. Dice. Yes. Remember paying a lot of money for it.
Yeah, we
Dice
use
is still
Dice.
around. Yeah, Dice is still still in business. Career Builder and Monster, they merged fairly recently, and I think they're going through some issues right now that
yes.
They might be pulling it apart or something like that. But yeah.
In staffing, what was in the last 20 years, what do you think you could have said, gosh, I really missed out on that. That's something I thought about, but I never executed on. I should have got into this. For example, if anybody talked about a true story, the Bitcoin, I think, TJ, was it 20 years ago? I don't know. It was 2010 or 11. Some kid came to us and said, you guys have servers. And could I borrow one or two servers? Because I'm mining this thing known as Bitcoin, and I'll pay you an X amount of Bitcoin. I'll just keep mining. X amount will go to you guys. We're like, dude, we don't have space. We've got our servers all full. They're in a data center. No worries. And now you look back, you could have mined, who knows how many. So there's nothing wrong with that or right with that, because at that point that there could be 20 other technologies. Doesn't mean they all worked out. But what was it in your case that you felt, gosh, in this industry, this would have been a great thing to have jumped on, and that eventually maybe you got into it, but something that you felt was really, it was a North Star for everybody?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, they would say is, get into services, more solutions, and, instead of doing just staffing, do solutions. But we've been doing that from the beginning with our digital side. So we've always been, we can either do it all on SOW, design, build with our own team members, or provide you the staff. So it was never like we should have started that sooner. What comes to mind for me is that, we've been privately held from the beginning. We have bootstrapped this from the beginning. And, with that, we've maintained control and we we decide, the vision and we execute on it versus somebody else. But if you may look back and say, if we would have brought in some private equity, if we, would have gone that route to really fuel the growth faster, that would be interesting to see what that could have meant. Now, we've still grown to almost a $200 million company, multiple countries, multiple service lines, without doing that. But, if we had brought in PE early, would we be a $500 million company today? Or would it have broken us and, we would have lost the passion, spun off or exited, or I don't know. You hear stories of it happening both ways, but that's something that you look back and wonder. If you look back at COVID, a lot of lessons learned from second half of 2020 till now. And there was a lot of staffing companies that spun up a nursing staffing practice.
Yep.
Early on in COVID, and just had monster years, but it's all for the most part dried up. But there was a moment in time where, IT staffing companies are like, we're doing nursing staffing, and they had 1,000 nurses out on billing, and they kind of really took advantage of that opportunity. But then there's the downside of when the pandemic wraps up and that demand comes way down, and the strongest players, stay in the space, and the ones that spun up, spin out of the space. So I don't, I really, this may sound vain, but I don't have a lot of like, man, I wish we would have done that, or we would have been so much different if we would have done that. The one thing that you learn through ups and downs, and I've really tried to capitalize on, very early on in our company, and through some of the earlier recessions in my career, I've tried to hire during that time because that's when some of the best people are available. And, it's really hard to hire when things are booming. Everyone's making a lot of money. They're feeling satisfied. But if you can find a way to invest in a down market, especially in the people, that's a big opportunity. So I'd say there's probably been some opportunities left on the table where, I wasn't aggressive enough with that, or, didn't have enough capital ready, for that. But I think, we consider ourselves to be a very innovative company, very tech forward company, more of a tech company that does staffing and services than a staffing company. And so we're jumping on it. I think, if you fast forward to today, if you are not evangelizing AI into your organization at a breakneck pace, you're at very real risk of being a dinosaur within 12 to 24 months. I think right now is going to kind of make or break not just companies in our space, but a lot of companies out there, that if you can really adopt AI and take advantage of it and increase productivity and do the amazing things that it can do for you, you're going to be in good shape. But if you don't, you're going to fall behind really fast.
You're absolutely right. AI is it's not only a buzzword anymore, right? So used to be a buzzword. Now it's real, right? And it's evolving so quickly. Every quarter on our side, we see the tangible, value of implementing AI solutions within your ecosystem. So just on that note, Jeremy, where at a high level, we don't have to get into details, which area of your business have you guys incorporated AI, any component of AI, whether it's generative AI whether it's analytics, whether it's voice, whether it's task management. Where at a high level are you guys using AI today?
Yeah, we've been on this journey for, I would say, a solid year and a half where we started with what are we spending the most time on that are either, very time consuming and relatively low value, that you can really, if you figure that out, it can have a massive productivity increase. And just knowing the things that AI are good for, which is, at scale, data analysis, where there's not a lot of uniqueness in what you need it to do or context that it needs to understand. And you start looking at where you can apply those things. And then, what are people great at? People are great at storytelling, empathy, persuasion, and so you say, here's what AI is great at. And automation, here's what people are great at that AI really can't do. And you get into this human in the loop, theory, and you can do some great things. So the most employees we have in-house are recruiters. And so you look at, you start there and say, what are the recruiters spending their time on? They're spending a lot of time on sourcing and screening candidates. I mean, that's what they do all day long. So if you could start looking at what they're doing there and bringing in technology to start doing some of those things. Say, one of the things that I can share and I'll talk about is, we implemented a voice AI for basically as soon as you apply on our site, you get a call from a voice AI agent that takes you through a pre-screen. So, and basically it's all conversational. It's come a long ways, but essentially we're getting to those candidates within a minute after they apply. So they're still engaged. They're still thinking about, the position that they just applied for, and they know the name of your company. And then they talk about their skills and basically we score them. And then we flow all that information back into our ATS and flow it into our recruiters' hands. Because we're, in some cases, we may get 100 to 200 applicants. And so the time consuming element for a recruiter is understanding which of those applicants are the best. So if we can find a way to very quickly at scale elevate the best candidates so that when the recruiters come in, they already have all this information. They know that they've scored high. Now they can come in kind of for the final mile, do more of the cultural assessment, cultural alignment on the role and the company, make sure they're a good fit and get them submitted. So, you think about, if you have 100 recruiters and you've got, 7,000, 10,000 candidates that have applied, if they were going to go through the process of calling all of them, how long that would take, where the voice AI agent can call them all at the same time. It could be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. So that's where you really get the scale. Now, is it perfect? No. And that's one of the things I've learned is that there's nothing out there today that you just plug in and it's like, oh my God, the productivity improvement has been so amazing and it's like perfect. You have to iterate, you have to provide feedback, give feedback, and continually refine and make it better, because all of this stuff is so new that it's just nothing is really plug and play out there yet. But that's something that, and you worry, well, like, what does that mean for the brand? And, what percentage of people are going to take the call from the AI agent? And, those are all real concerns. And at the end of the day, you've got some people that are unhappy. They're like, I want to talk to a human, and it's trained to kind of go through that and try to still get them to talk. And you've got a lot of people that love it. They're just like, if this helps me get through the process faster, I'm all for it. If this helps me elevate to the top of the candidate list, or they'll say, I've applied to 20 other jobs and I haven't talked to anybody. So I'll talk to an AI agent just because it feels like I'm actually getting somewhere. And so it's, we're all going to have to get used to more of this agentic world that, we'll be stepping into. But if you look at the impact it's had, it's been very solid and continues to get better.
That's great. And, and the rule of thumb we have is if we can introduce agentic AI into your ecosystem and we can impact up to 70%, that's the key today. It's not going to be 100% effective.
Right.
Up to 70%, you've won. And it's in baby steps, right? As you mentioned, it's a baby step. It's pre-vetting, right? I mean, I've got, 2,000 candidates. How do I go through them? Go through all of them and pre-vet them. And that's where it's really proving its value today. But it's interesting to see even the generation gap that's happening. I was just talking to, when I say kid, he's graduating from college, senior in college with a computer science major. And he said, my first 2 interviews for the last 4 employers have been on AI. So I've not even spoken to a real human being yet. And he's 21, and he was fine with it. So, that's the new world, and so that generation is going to get used to this. And there's another article I was reading that fast forward 3, maybe 5 years from now, as the tech evolves and we start like you said, iterating it and making it to that level where it's more trustworthy, it's more dependable, it's more reliable. One day, you as a CEO or as a leader will be managing agents rather than human beings. There will be a time when instead of having 100 employees, 50 employees, 30 of them would be digital workers, agents sitting, performing a certain task, reporting up to you. And the way things are going, give it another 5 years, 7 years. I think it's still time. It'll vary from the type of industry, it'll vary from the type of role, it'll vary from the type of complexity, but it's moving. I mean, it's moving faster than one can even imagine right now. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think I view it in a little more aspirational way where we'll be able to generate a lot more revenue with the people and the team we have because of the technologies that we're bringing in versus having less staff in order to get there. I think we're all a little, concerned. Maybe what does this look like 20 years from now? Is there any jobs left for anybody? With the way it's going. But I think for me, it's the best result and the best ROI comes from when you have people plus technology, and you're covering all the bases from that perspective. Your technology is doing the things that it's great at. People are adding value on top of that with the things that only people can do, human judgment. And so, I think what you probably look at is you won't have to keep scaling the employee numbers to the point that you maybe would have 10 years ago or 5 years ago. But the people that you have can produce a lot more because of the technology enablement. So I'm really excited about it. And whenever we talk about something going away, I think it's more, the people that can really embrace it, understand it, harness it, the companies that can do that are going to be tremendously successful and will have amazing growth.
It's like someone saying, I refuse to take a car, I'll still walk. That's not going to last too long, right? Technology moved and it's moving. You might as well jump on that car and see how well you can drive the car or do a better job at making it faster. That's probably where it'll be. Coming on a little bit on the personal side, Jeremy. So it's one of the things that we have felt even as entrepreneurs is um, taking care of, what else is outside of this, which is taking care of your health, making sure, sports, music, all the above is what keeps you sane and keeps you standing. Because there's only eye to eye can we look and say, anybody who's been an entrepreneur 20, 30 years knows that look in their faces going, you don't know which angle you're going to get hit on which day and where
That's
at what
right.
time, right? And it requires a special type of individual for that, where you can brush off things and yet takes other things super seriously. So on your side, let's go through one. What is your fitness routine and what is your philosophy on like nutrition, fitness? Because you're running so many different countries. That means time zones are tough. Things can go, haywire at the worst time of the day. So what's been your on that? What's your schlick on this, as they say?
Yeah, and I'll talk about kind of what's always been there and maybe what's been new over the last 3 years, because I've gone through probably more of a transformation in that time frame. But I've always really enjoyed sports. I love to compete. I play ice hockey. I still play it today. When my kids, I have 4 children. I coach them in hockey. And so whenever I was coaching, I was always out there skating and doing the laps with them. And like, if I'm going to be out there, I'm going to be working up a sweat. And so, just try to always keep busy, and always keep moving, as, standing when you get the opportunity and taking the stairs and, those types of things. But when you have 4 kids and you have a business, I think that when we were really in the throes of it, it was hard to have that additional time to go to the gym or to do your workouts or, to eat right when you're on the run and you're taking them places and you're kind of always moving. But say over the last 3 years, as I've had my children leaving the nest, I have 2 out. My 3rd son is going to college in the fall. And so we'll be down to our 1 daughter. You tend to have more time. So over the last couple of years, I get to the gym for workouts. I try for at least 3 times a week. And then in addition to that, playing some pickleball, still playing ice hockey once a week. So definitely getting in the activity and the lifting and things like that. And then it's really starting to work on the nutrition. And I think we're learning a lot right now about what eating healthy means and what we're putting into our body is doing to us, and is it good for us or not. And I think we're all recovering from really horrible nutrition of the last 30 years. And if you look at that food pyramid that we've been operating off of, it's been awful. It's been awful,
Yep.
And so, you fast forward that to today and whole foods and meats, more of a protein-based diet, sunshine, trying to get out and get a little bit of sunshine every day. They've been telling us the sun is so bad for us. It's bad for us if you're out there getting burned every single day. But if you're out there for 10 minutes a day getting sunshine, it's what rejuvenates you. It's what you need. Grounding, being barefoot in the grass and on the dirt and walking around. All these things, I think, there's been, the kind of the blue zones out there, the blue zone cultures that they've stuck with all of this stuff that in some more industrialized parts of the world we've all gotten away from, I think are all coming back in meaningful ways. And it just makes sense. But, that stuff can be hard to do when you are running a company, when you have any kind of big job that requires a lot of your time and energy, when you have family that you need to make sure you're giving plenty of time for your family. And so, something generally has to give. You can't do it all amazingly well. But I think, if you're looking at us, we're getting up there a little bit. You start to have a little less of that family time, which is unfortunate, but that means you can spend some more time on yourself and making sure you're doing the right things to keep in shape. And my goal is to live to at least 100 years old. And so, I got to make sure I'm doing the things right now that are going to get me there.
Yep. That's a noble goal as we go, as we age, and you become much more, I think, aware of your own, your own age as you age. Like, we didn't even think about these things. In your 30s, all you're doing is working as, your rear off, and same thing in the 40s. Reaching 50s does change your mindset, especially when you do have a lot of people our age already passing, and due to, heart disease, due to this or that, something's always up, and it's more common. So you suddenly realize that there's only so many years we've got. And would you have it any different than entrepreneurship? Probably not. But again, the eating lifestyle, we just got back from Japan. It's insane. Not many people are spending any time in gyms. Gym is like, that's for the very minimum population. It's all about activities, walking well, eating well, just sitting out and chilling. And it really does open up your mind. And I think that's required, because us as a nation have worked so hard towards commercialization, right? Everything's about commerce. Who was it who was just saying, if you had to ask a French person, what do you do? They say, I like to play hockey. Yes. I love to go there, do this. That's who I am. And any three of us, somebody asks us, hey, Jeremy, what do you do? Hey, Sammy, I'm going to say, I'm in work now. I'm in technology. I'm trying to do this. Yeah. So completely upside down in the way we approach those things, right?
Yeah, I've read about that as well. Yeah, I love that concept of, I'm a father, I'm an athlete, I'm an outdoorsman, I'm a husband. Those are the things that define me, not the job that I do.
Yeah, I love my 80s music, and I love it. I do my thing, man. That's the way it is.
Yeah, the other thing, I wear one of these Aura rings now. But I think just being able to track your fitness, track your movement, your steps, how you sleep at night, your stress levels. This is a lot of newer technology now over the last handful of years that just didn't exist before. The concept of monitoring your sleep or monitoring your stress levels, that it wasn't a thing 10 years ago that I'm aware of. And so there's opportunities now to take advantage of the technology world that we live in, to really understand what's happening with our bodies and minds, and how do we make sure that they're getting what they need.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Did I, TJ, miss out anything that we had it's go ahead, TJ.
No, I think we're good. We covered a lot, Jeremy. You were 45 minutes of...
This can go on for another hour usually. And that's the fun of it, Jeremy. But thank you again for taking the time to come out here and, chat with us. And this is one of many, because I think as we are going down this journey of talking to, you're kind of one of the few that's coming from the IT world for us. And that really helps us, because we are ourselves in IT. This is all we do all day. And that helps us also understand that where is the market going? Because you're at the edge of that, right? Like, hey, the demand's coming in now for AI folks. It's more for analysts. It's not going to be
AI, cloud, cyber. Cyber is not something that we've talked about, but cyber is, it's so critical. Just the amount of threats that are out there that every company, every individual is facing. There's so much that we need to do to stay on top of that and do what we can to make it as difficult as possible for those bad actors. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yep, at the end everybody will have the rotary dial phone in our hands and a card that doesn't communicate to anybody. So to some extent, as a personal level, and then at a different level, it'll be technology, right? So all of this and it's such an interesting world. I think we have lived through, at least us who grew up like high school in the 80s. Look at the change that we got to see. It's
incredible.
Insane. It's love it, love every minute of it, and I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, when my daughter was, I think when she was going into 6th grade, and she's, that's when we were like, okay, well, let's look at a phone for you. She was like, well, Dad, what age did you get a cell phone? I was like, I think like 32. She's like, what? Like your parents wouldn't let you have one? I'm like, no, they didn't exist. Like I had a pager, and then I had a BlackBerry, and then I had something else before the iPhone was even around. So yeah, it's pretty, but I think right now, like the change I've seen over 30 years where, we had typewriters and fax machines and pagers and pulling over and using pay phones to call people back. We didn't have email yet. We didn't have internet yet when I started in this business. And so you look at that change over 30 years, I think that we're going to have more change in the next 5 than those 30 years combined. Yes. I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, if you want to call it that, with AI, that it's really, it's going to be incredible.
Yes, we all look forward to it. And for us, it is the industry will continue as humans, and we will just take part where we are needed, and AI will continue to surround us, right? That's the way we see it. Again, Jeremy, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We gotta be in touch, and hopefully we can have another chat down the road.